welcome to the differences between Kundalini awakening and spiritual awakening part 6. By now you would have watched the intro 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 episodes of the relationship between a Kundalini awakening and a spiritual awakening. A spiritual awakening provides the consciousness within which a Kundalini awakening is going to operate. A Kundalini awakening can come in two ways. One is when the nervous system can no longer cope with whatever it is, when your nervous system is so compromised, right? It comes when you are absolutely compressed. All systems have crashed inside of you. So it's a bit like you're having a nervous breakdown. Now, when that happens, that compression in our system can sometimes force for the Kundalini to be sparked into a very, very open and awakened state, right? So I'm going to try to demonstrate that using my little one's toy. Now, when it's asleep, it's like this. It's a little ball. If it has awoken up all of a sudden, but your nervous system is being compromised, it's going to either shoot out a little bit or it's going to go like this. But the space you have because your nervous system is compromised is probably like this, but you're dealing with an energy that's this size. Now, the second way is when we are preparing for it. And as we prepare for it, having been through the various stages, right, which we will get to at some point, and I did mention the 8 limbs of Patanjali Sutras, and I will explain to you the parallels of those in various cultures, belief systems, and how they just fit into us as just being very ordinary, normal human beings without a religion, without any scriptural basis for this either. So look out for that. Now, if you've then been preparing your nervous system, so your Kundalini awakening will look a bit like this. Okay, now by the time it gets to that, you will have created that big a space for it. Okay, so your channel will be clear. Now imagine that you've got a ball this size that's expanded to that size, but there's only this space in your central channel. What's going to happen? It's going to be stuck. It'll only be able to pass through whenever there is space in that channel, right? I hope you're with me and it makes sense. Now, when there is no space, now say for example, the kind of trauma that you might have experienced. So if that's the reason why your nervous system is compromised, right? So it might get stuck in your Muladhara, your Swadhisthana, your Nabi chakra, so it might be stuck in the lower chakras, right? Sometimes it can get so stuck that it starts to build its own little home at that point in the channel, and it may not have, it'll take a while before it even hits your central channel, the Sushumna, right? So it could be traveling in the Ida, it could be in the Pingala, it could be in any one of these places, right? That ball of energy. And not only is it going to be just that ball of energy, it might also be giving out some vapor. It might be giving up some other sparks. Now, when that happens, it'll amplify the characteristics of that particular chakra. Now, what happens with the spiritual awakening is, by the time you've had a spiritual awakening, albeit spontaneous, folks, right? Though it is a spontaneous, the fact that you're even calling it one, a spiritual awakening, the fact that you're even using any of these terms, as I've said to you before, right, are testament to that there is something profound happening with you, and there is a part of you that wants to match and put the puzzle pieces together so that you can verify that that exactly is what is happening, which you eventually will realize that it is. And you don't really need verification for that, because the verification that you need is you yourself. Okay, now what happens with the spiritual awakening, right? As you're going through your awakening and your Kundalini awakening, your spiritual side, your spiritual awakening, which is you now waking up to the fabric of existence and realizing, oh wow, I'm just a little speck, or realizing all sorts of things, right? You will then know, I think this is where my Kundalini is. This is what I need to work on right now. This is what is healing at the moment. And to facilitate this healing, you might find synchronicities. You might feel that you stumble upon people, places, and everything starts to slot in. Now, I don't know whether any of you are familiar with this series, the Bewitched series. There was a witch called Samantha in it, right? Now, in one of the episodes, I think her husband or somebody was, or a friend of the husband had been under some spell, and every time, and they found out what the cure for the spell was, and every time they did the cure and they carried out what they had to carry out, there was a bell that rang, ding, okay? So now when that rang, everything fell into place and that was washed out. Now, similarly, with us too, as we pave way, so when that healing takes place and everything goes ding, and then you're able to move further and you receive more insights. Now, except as those of you who are actually going through this, the one thing you'll notice, it's not as clear cut and to that process to the T, is it? Right? Because on some days you might feel, oh, hang on, is it here? Wait a minute, I've been dealing with sacral chakra issues, or maybe codependency, or maybe addictions and what have you. But then your crown chakra is tingling a bit as well, and you're receiving all of these divine insights. So what is actually happening? Imagine that there's a cauldron of hot boiling water, or there's a cauldron with just water, okay? Now, your nervous system, either through preparation, one, or no preparation, when your nervous system is absolutely super compromised, Kundalini swooshes in to save the day. And I will explain this in the next post, what happens. Now, at that time, that cauldron that was full of water starts to simmer. And then it starts to boil, right? Now, when it reaches boiling point, and if you leave your water boiling in the pan, what happens? It gives out this steam, vapor. That is why it's not that the Kundalini comes out of the Kunda, which is the pit. It doesn't mean that it's coming out and then that means there's nothing down there. No, it still remains down there. And from down there, the base is there. The vapor is simply rising. It's simply rising. And that energy will keep recharging itself as you are ascending. So you're not going to run out of vapor. But if you shut it down anywhere between below the third eye, in fact, quite possibly even below the throat, it becomes much easier for it to just go back down, right? That will stop. It will stop, but you may still have heightened sensitivity, which we will talk about in another post. Stay tuned for the second, or rather the seventh part to this, but in relation to this in particular. Lots of love coming right back to you. Take care.